Good day, I'm Junior Researcher Adam Southgate. My role within the Order of Merlin is to create these instructional videos for our new and old hunters. I'd like to ask that all hunters of the horrors of the spheres please subscribe as to not miss our future lectures and announcements. I would also appreciate, no matter which nation's anti-incursion team you may belong to, any stories of horrific entities you may have faced personally written in the comment area of this video. Now, as always, we'll begin with our general announcements. Firstly, Grandmaster Jones, who, if you are not aware, is the only hunter to have an official position as staff within the Order of Merlin, will be giving his own in-person lecture on the techniques for dispatching entities he himself has created during his long career. Information about dates and times will be available at your local Order office. Secondly, we have become aware of a growing number of hunters creating and using fireworks, as they are colloquially known. If you have somehow missed this, what is being done is that hunters are buying fireworks in large quantities and then using the powder inside to create a large range of improvised explosives. Though we at the Order applaud your ingenuity, we are concerned that by buying large amounts of fireworks in the middle of April, you may bring unwanted attention to yourselves. Finally, Phase Sphere activity has been ramping up, and as such we are inundated with reports and general contracts relating to hexes and curses. In response, we at the Order will be stocking large amounts of cold iron weaponry, horseshoes and rabbit's feet, all available for you to purchase for a moderate fee. We are unsure how long this increase in Fey activity will go on for, as in the past it has been anything from 2 days to a decade. We would appreciate all hunters take on at least one contract relating to the Fey within the next week in an attempt to clear the backlog. So, today's lecture will be on the Aberration sphere's flesh lice. To begin with, the flesh lice are, at least to the untrained eye, indistinguishable from wood lice. There are some very minor cosmetic differences, however, what truly sets them apart is their carnivorous nature, along with their anomalous ability to eat far faster and in far larger quantities than should be possible. Hailing from the Aberration sphere, we are unsure if their resemblance to wood lice is a multiversal coincidence or an adaptation they can innately do. Either way, it makes them near impossible to identify without extreme caution. If one were able to observe and compare a flesh louse with a wood louse, you would begin to notice these subtle differences. At the bottom section of each leg of a flesh louse is a razor-sharp edge, near invisible except for when the light catches it just right, and it is reflected back. Also, flesh lice have small spinnerets similar to a spider's, though far more concealed. With this, it is able to create silk in far larger quantities and in a far shorter time than should be physically possible. Finally, its mouth parts, which are closer in form to humans, though concealed beneath mandibles. Its incredibly sharp teeth are easily able to cut through flesh and even gnaw through bone. The hunting strategy of the flesh lice is rather intriguing, as they could be referred to as passive ambush predators. Upon arriving in our sphere, the single flesh louse will immediately seek out mundane wood lice to hide amongst. This will usually result in the flesh louse ending up inside dead wood. Once it has reached its destination, it will enter a dormant state where it will not move, all bodily functions ceasing, with it being able to remain in this state indefinitely. What the flesh louse is waiting for is some larger animal to come looking for an easy meal in the wood lice. As the luckless creature begins to enjoy its meal, the flesh louse, whether through the soft tissue of the mouth or just through the skin, will zip, as it's referred, into the body. A flesh louse zipping is when it, quicker than the human eye can perceive, slits the skin of its victim with its razor-like legs, while secreting a fast-acting local anesthetic. It will then enter the victim through the newly made hole, sealing it behind itself with its incredibly fine and durable silk. From here, the louse will lay in wait until its victim naturally falls asleep. Once this has happened, it will begin to feed, constantly excreting its anesthetic. From observations of those suffering from this effect, we know that as the creature moves around inside the body of its victim, it will create patches of pins and needles. Its goal is to quickly reproduce inside the host, which it does abnormally fast. Like all aberration sphere creatures, the flesh louse can reproduce asexually. However, it takes it a step further, with its thousands of young growing to full maturity and reproducing themselves within 27 minutes. The ideal scenario for the louse is that the victim dies before they awaken, leaving a hollowed out husk of skin behind. However, they will, if the victim awakens beforehand and becomes distressed, pour out of the unfortunate animal or person and quickly search for a place to hide. Interestingly, they are fully capable of devouring their prey before it can attempt to do anything. Not that in most cases there is anything to do, however, due to the fact they are not eusocial, they instead will attempt to flee en masse. Usually, however, if the victim does awaken, they will believe that they had slept wrong, making their limb fall asleep. They will then return to their beds, none the wiser of their impending fate. Now, this is where I would usually place an interview I'd conducted especially for the lesson. However, it is rather difficult to ask a louse a question, or rather it's very easy, but they most likely won't respond. Instead, I will read to you the transcript that was painstakingly put together after the recent outbreak in the Mumbles near Swansea. Thankfully, the couple that lived at the house were big lovers of pet cameras, otherwise we'd have nothing to go on. 2:37 AM. The couple are seen laying in bed. Male 1 is seen tossing and turning, while male 2 is lying perfectly still. 2:42 AM. Male 1 sits up and places his feet on the ground. He can be seen rubbing his right arm, which appears to be completely numb. He then stands and walks to the ensuite bathroom, not closing the door. 2:43 AM. Male 1 flushes the toilet and washes his hands, with some difficulty due to his numbed right arm, then drying them. He then appears to notice a flesh louse sitting upon his left hand. 2:44 AM. Male 1 carefully begins to walk towards the open bathroom window, seemingly with the intent of releasing the creature. 2:45 AM. Male 1 rapidly whips his arm around as if attempting to remove something. We believe male 1 witnessed the flesh louse zip into his left hand. 2:47 AM. Male 1 has calmed his breathing and begun looking on the floor for the louse, seemingly believing that what he saw was a figment of his tired mind. 2:49 AM. Male 1, after his failed search, seems to notice a thin streak of pins and needles running up his left arm, along with a small bump that is moving underneath his skin. 2:50 AM. Male 1 begins slapping at the lump in his arm until he suddenly stops and looks down at his right numbed arm. 2:51 AM. Thousands of flesh lice pour from the hollowed out skin of what was male 1's right arm. He manages to jump backwards, however, many enter other parts of his body. 2:52 AM. Male 1 can be seen leaping over the flesh lice covering the floor and lands back in the bedroom, where he grips the bed cover in his left hand and throws it off. 2:53 AM. Male 2's body seems to suddenly deflate as millions of flesh lice leave his body, leaving only skin and hair behind. 2:56 AM. Male 1 has been standing stock still for near 3 minutes, staring at the husk of his deceased husband, while more flesh lice enter his body through his feet. 2:57 AM. Male 1 seems to come back to his senses and begins to walk from the room. However, his legs give way beneath him. He is then seen pulling himself from the room with his left arm. 3 AM. Male 1 can be seen tumbling into the living room from the stairs, seemingly having thrown himself down them. 3:01 AM. Male 1 pulls himself to the bioethanol-fueled fireplace within the living room. 3:02 AM, male 1 removes the tops from 5 bottles of the fuel with his teeth, his left arm seemingly becoming more numbed. 3:03 AM, using what little strength is left in his left arm, male 1 spreads the liquid around the room, throwing the bottles. 3:04 AM, male 1 uses a pull switch lighter. During the investigation into this event, it was discovered that the couple had recently purchased a new coffee table, made from recycled wooden construction pallets. On chasing this up, it was found that the independent amateur carpenter had met with this same fate shortly after. Just like the individuals in the Mumbles case, many hunters will employ fire when dealing with flesh lice. However, fire does not actually kill the lice. Instead, they are forced to enter their dormant state. We are unsure what causes this, especially as they seem near impervious to high temperatures otherwise, though this reaction does open up a small window of opportunity for us. While in their dormant state, flesh lice are vulnerable and can, if one acted quickly enough, be dealt with. Though they seem impervious to poisons, disease, high temperature, low temperature, and vacuum, they are susceptible to crushing, as long as what they are being crushed with isn't organic. We have found that simply squishing them between 2 bricks is rather effective, although this should only be attempted when they are dormant. Even while dormant, they are still extremely dangerous, as they appear to be able to sense when they have come into contact with living flesh, and will awaken immediately upon contact. Infestations of flesh lice in recent times have been on the rise, especially within the middle classes, due to their propensity to purchase recycled wooden furniture, along with their hobbies of rambling and scrapbooking, making them more likely to come into contact with these creatures. For avoiding flesh lice while hunting, I would suggest wearing thick-soled shoes, and also attempting to not let your skin touch any dead wood while you're in a forest. But that will be all today. I hope you paid attention and learned something. With Arthur's might and Merlin's wisdom, thank you.